are back again at the American Heart Association Simple Cooking with Heart Kitchen, and I am Chef Tia Berry, and today we're going to be making quick fajitas. I have with me today Dr. Charles Lowenstein from Johns Hopkins. How are you today?
Good.
And what exactly do you do at Johns Hopkins?
I do a couple of things. I'm Chief of Cardiology, which means I support my faculty and set the strategy. I do vascular biology research, looking at inflammation in blood vessels, and best of all, I take care of patients. Used to work in the cardiac care unit, taking care of really sick patients, and now I do outpatients. And every time I meet a patient, I ask them, how much exercise do you do, and what do you eat to keep a healthy lifestyle?
So we're going to make something healthy today, right?
Great.
It's not going to be your, maybe not traditional fajitas, but it's going to be delicious, and it's simple, quick, and it's something you can do very easily when you come home from work. So it's not one of those things where you're going to be in the kitchen all evening cooking. So, ready to get started?
Let's go.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to chop up our veggies, okay? Talk a little bit about, and I talk about it every time we do any type of cooking class, I talk about how to hold a knife and knife safety. So what we have here is a chef knife. And to have the most control over your knife, ideally you don't want to walk around the kitchen swinging your knife because that's not safe. So as far as cutting, how we hold the knife is we pinch the blade, the remaining fingers go around the handle. When you hold your knife this way, your knife will not go anywhere that your wrist doesn't guide it, right? A lot of times, my mom cooked like this. She would hold her knife like this. This is the most common. And then we have people who hold their knife like this and they just hack at things. When you hold your knife this way, the control, it's more noticeable when you're doing like a melon or something that's hard like carrots or apples. You want to have the most control over your knife. So we're going to start off with cutting our peppers. And what I'll do is I'll share half of my orange pepper with you if you share half of your yellow pepper with me. And this is, I'm a chef, so I like my food to be pretty. Do you have to do it this way? You do not. But what I do is I cut off the top and the bottom of my peppers because I want really straight slices of bell pepper. And just cut it in half. Remove our seeds. And I'll give you this half and you give me half of yours. And what I do with these, I don't throw them away. I typically put them in a Ziploc bag and I put them in the freezer. And then I use them for things like spaghetti or chili because I don't really care how they look because they'll be irregular shaped. But I don't throw these away, I do save them. And anything that we're not using or we're gonna discard, we're just gonna put in this little bowl for right now. The other thing I want to point out is that in your bell pepper, this white part is bitter and it dilutes your flavor. So we always want to cut those out. And then whether you want to slice your pepper facing up or facing down, it doesn't matter. It's whichever is most comfortable for you. Thank you, sir. And from here, what we're going to do is just cut strips. The technical term would be julienne. However, strips are fine too. And the motion that we do when we're cutting is basically a rocking motion, a down and forward. And the reason we do down and forward is because we want to cut all the way through. Typically when people chop, they don't always cut all the way through. So the rocking motion makes sure that you cut all the way through whatever it is that you're cutting. So I typically keep the tip of the knife on the cutting board and just rock your knife over whatever it is that you're cutting. Try to be as consistent as possible because we are cooking these together. We want them to cook at the same rate. We have our peppers. We're going to just slice these up. One of the things I really like about this is the different color peppers. People eat with their eyes first, and if you have a lot of color and variety on your plate, it's more attractive, as I've been told. This is also something that you can do with your kids. This is one of my child's favorite fajitas, anything that's quick. And they have become a fajita master.
When our kids were little, we did a lot of baking together. Not as much cooking.
Okay.
But now that our kids are older, we cook together.
Cool. I think it's fun. Well, to me, cooking is fun. Not to everybody. But I think cooking is like the most fun thing you could ever do. It's relaxing for me as well. Now with our onion, all onions are pretty much the same, whether it's a leek, yellow onion, green onion, they grow the same. You have the end that comes out of the ground, the sprout end, and then you have your root end. The idea, we're gonna do these in slices. Typically when we're dicing, we keep the root end on, but we're not gonna do that today. We're gonna slice our onions. So we're gonna cut off the sprout end and the root end today. And notice we didn't peel yet, right? Which is awesome, because we don't have to. I'm gonna show you the easy way to peel onions. And then from here, make a flat surface, and we're gonna cut it right in half. Easiest way to peel an onion, instead of sitting there trying to peel off the little papery ends, is just to cut it in half, and then you can just peel off the papery layer. Shove those in there. And then we're going to follow the lines on the onion and just cut around. And what you'll wind up with is very nice sliced onions when they separate. And these will go in our fajita. And we can just use the lines on the onion as a guide. And when it gets a little too unstable, just kind of flip it down so it's flatter. And depending on how much onion you like, my family, we like a lot of onions. So we usually have a lot more onions than anything else.
I am used to cutting it in rounds, but I like this way.
You do?
Yep.
And it's honestly how you want to see it in the final presentation. So there's different, sometimes you may want a half moon, depending on what you're cooking. So, just gonna put those over to the side as well. What's your favorite thing to cook?
I have lots of things that I like to cook.
Okay.
I love baking. I love Southwestern food.
That's my favorite. Southwestern is my favorite.
And I like grilling a lot. Do a lot of grilling.
Do a lot of grilling. I like to grill too. I just don't like all the smoke coming in my face, so I leave it to my dad. Okay. The last thing that we're going to actually cut today before we move to our chicken is going to be our avocado. Avocados are pretty easy to cut. It's considered a fruit. A lot of people don't know that. It's considered a fruit because it has a large seed in the middle. It's called a stone fruit. And with avocados, we just take our knife, be careful of your hands, push it in till you get to the seed. These avocados are not that ripe. Apologize. And then you just kind of spin the avocado around until it's cut, and then you can twist it. And you have 2 halves of avocado. And to get the seed out, you just kind of stick your knife in. If it was very ripe, it would come out easily. And this isn't that ripe. You may have to pluck it out. Or we'll just use this half. We'll use the half that yours may be riper. And twist. Ah, awesome sauce. Look at you, you're the professional.
When we're home, to take this off,
Yep.
wrap it against the table,
Just
and then the
negative
pit goes all over the
flying.
floor.
And you know what? They say this is really good for, like, if you have skin issues. The seeds, you kind of peel it and grind it up, but that's a whole separate issue and program. Awesome. So what we're going to do now is just, by having it on the table, you don't want to hold it in your hand. These knives are pretty sharp, and you don't want to cut through the skin. So what I'm going to do is to cut my slices is just to cut some lines into the avocado. And then when it's time, we can just kind of scoop it out using a spoon, and we'll have nice, beautiful slices of avocado to put on top of our fajitas. If you like avocado. If you don't have to eat it. That's what I tell everyone. I feel like recipes are guides. You can always make changes to your recipe. However, if you are a person and you're trying to limit your salt, you want to be mindful about the things that we add. You can add a lot of flavor with citrus. You can add a lot of flavor with different spices. You don't necessarily have to have salt. It's just a matter of how you want to season your food. So what I did today is I kind of gave us some extra seasoning, but we'll talk about that in a second after we start cutting up our chicken. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to put these off to the side because what we don't want to do is contaminate our produce with our raw chicken. So we're just going to move this over to the stove because the only thing we have to do to it now is cook it. We still do need our knives. And while we're over here, I'm going to go ahead and turn on our black beans. In this pot, the only thing I have is some spray oil, canola, olive oil, a light oil, and then the beans, the canned beans. I just opened the can of beans and rinsed them. So we're going to turn them on, let them heat up so they'll be ready for our fajitas. Wrong one. There we go. And we're going to put this on a medium flame because we are going to be doing other things. Perfect. And then here we have our chicken breasts. Chicken breast is one of the leaner cuts of chicken. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our chicken off and put it on the cutting board. And you should always practice this at home. If you don't have multiple cutting boards like we do in this kitchen, what I would suggest doing is cut up all your produce first, move them off to a bowl or a different container, and then cut your chicken. Always do your meats last. The biggest thing we want to do is remove some of this visible fat. Because that is the artery clogging part, correct?
Yes.
Chicken fat. We do not want that. And then from there, what we're going to do basically is we are going to slice our chicken into strips, depending on how thick you want your strips to be. I like mine a little thin, so I'm just slicing my chicken. You can slice it in any direction that you like. We're just going to cut it into strips. And then while we have it on the board, we'll go ahead. The recipe calls for you to season it in the pan, but that's not how I grew up. My grandma taught me how to cook, and we always seasoned the food before we put it in the pan. I just think it tastes better. It's psychological. As we cut up the chicken, I want to talk a little bit about the seasonings that we're putting in here. The recipe calls for a half a teaspoon of black pepper and a half a teaspoon of cumin. However, I do know that in the Southwest or Hispanic flavor profile, there's also garlic, there's onion, there's peppers. So in our spice blend, I added no salt, but I did add the garlic powder, I added onion powder, I put a little paprika in there. I like spice, so I put ground up chipotle peppers. I also did red pepper flakes. I really like spice.
At home, sometimes when we're doing this, we mix up cumin, oregano, paprika, and then we take a dried poblano pepper and ancho and put it on the stove for a minute,
Yeah.
right? And then grind it up. That's our family favorite mix.
I also did, now that you mentioned oregano, I did add oregano and thyme. If you don't have those, sometimes just a little pinch of Italian seasoning works as well. But if you're like me, I have spices for days. And I tend to make my own spice blends, and I'm starting to smell our beans, so I do want to stir them up a little bit, because what we do not want them to do is burn. We just want to heat them up. They're pretty much already cooked because they came out of a can.
Do you ever put spice in your beans?
I do. When I make them, and we're going to turn it down to low. Whenever I make beans at home, I typically add onions, garlic, cilantro in my beans. Sometimes a little chicken broth. I drain them and then add and it's so much faster to make the canned beans. I know people are probably saying, why don't you soak the beans and do all that other stuff? No. I work full time and I have kids. Canned beans it is. And canned are actually a very good substitute. Just get the low sodium variety and make sure you rinse them to rinse off any additional, oh, you're fast. That's because I was talking, I guess.
We have a recipe at home where we fry up onions and tomatoes and put a little chili pepper in adobo sauce and put that in the black beans. Delicious.
That sounds really delicious, actually. I might have to try that. Another thing I do with chicken for flavor, and I'm gonna turn this off because I don't want it to overheat, is take the adobo, the chipotle peppers and adobo sauce, and if you have leftover chicken, just kind of shred the chicken and simmer it in the sauce, and it's kind of like a really quick chicken tinga.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm all about the quick meals during the week. All about the quick meals. And I want to make sure it tastes good, so I try to add a lot of flavor wherever I can. I don't like that part. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm a little oddball. There's certain parts of the chicken that don't look nice, so I don't cut them. You're laughing. It's true. It's true. That's the only reason why I'm taking longer. All right. There we go. All right.
I have a question. After we handle chicken, are we supposed to wash our hands right away or wait till the end?
You should wash your hands right away because anything that you touch now will be contaminated with chicken. So being mindful that we did touch the stove, but I touched it with this hand, I believe, I hope. In here is where I did our spice blend, and I wasn't sure if you wanted extra spice, so I put the extra spice in there for you.
Extra spice.
Extra spice. So, but I did not add salt. The salt comes in from this recipe, and I don't know if you noticed, but we had soy sauce in the recipe. That's where our salt comes from, the soy. That's the only salt that we're going to add. It also gives you like that earthy flavor, adding it to the chicken, that back note. It makes it delicious. So we're going to add soy sauce when we cook the chicken. But I, again, like to season my chicken before I start to cook it, because I feel like the seasoning gets all the way in it. And there's a friend of mine who has a YouTube channel who cooks food as well, and he says your food is not seasoned unless you're sneezing. But it doesn't mean that you have to add salt. And just kind of mix that up, and then we'll take a real quick break to wash our hands so that we can continue on with cooking. So what I added was a little, like I said, thyme, oregano, garlic powder, onion powder. And if you definitely had thyme, you would let it sit for a little bit so the flavors really kind of marinate inside the chicken. Also, which I know maybe a lot of people don't do, your chicken or whatever protein you're cooking will cook much faster and more evenly if it's at room temperature. So we did have these, prep all your other things and then prep your meat so that it's a little bit warmer. All right, so nice and seasoned. We get rid of all of our chicken stuff, wash our hands, and then we'll start cooking. We'll be ready to go. Okay, we are back and we're about to start cooking. What I want to start cooking first will be the chicken and then add the peppers in. And the reason why I do that is so that we don't have to use a lot of dishes. I'm an efficient cook. But the recipe does call for you to cook the veggies first, take them out of pan, put them in something else, and then cook your chicken and then add them back in to kind of bring them together. But I found that for me, I want my veggies to have the flavor of my chicken, so I start cooking the chicken first, and then it kind of builds in the pan. So that's just how I do it. So let's do that today.
All right.
Cool. All right, so let's get started. I'm also a person, it should be this one. You have your flame as high as you would like it to be. If you're a person that's not very attentive on top of your food, then I would say have it on medium. I tend to cook things on a high flame, mainly because I want it to cook and get out of the kitchen. So I like to cook, I just don't like to be in the kitchen for a long period of time. So instead of us using a lot of oil, we're gonna just use some canned spray. It can be olive oil, it can be canola oil, any light type of oil, unsaturated is what we're going for. Perfect. And these are non-stick pans. I'd like to use non-stick pans too because you can use less oil. So that's the idea. And once your pan gets hot enough, you'll see that it doesn't look as bubbly. It'll start to kind of melt down and heat up. One of the things that my mom used to do when I was younger would be to throw water in the pan to see if it was hot enough. However, if there's oil in the pan, they don't mix and it tends to pop you. I don't like doing that. So what I will do is to see if my pan is hot enough, whatever it is I'm cooking, I'll just put one piece in there, and once it starts to sizzle, I know it's hot enough. If it's not sizzling, it's not hot. The other thing is, because we have a pound of chicken and our pans are pretty big, we don't want it to steam. We want to saute our chicken. So we're going to do it in batches.
Okay, got it.
So that our chicken doesn't steam and it has a little color on it. It's not kind of like it needs a tan sometimes if you put too much in there. So just waiting for the pan to get hot. So what kind of things do you tell your patients to? You mentioned that you tell them what to eat, how they should eat, exercise. What kind of things do you tell your patients to make?
Sure. 3 or 4 things. Exercise about 20 or 30 minutes a day.
Okay.
For people who've never exercised before, that means walking outside. If you're used to exercising, it means jogging. 20 to 30 minutes a day. Second, eat a diet that's approved by the American Heart Association. That means lots of fruits.
Yes.
Vegetables. You can get proteins from legumes or from lean meat like chicken.
Okay.
Don't use a lot of high-fat oils. Use healthy polyunsaturated oils. And don't eat a lot of calories. Everyone needs about 2,000 calories a day or less. Don't eat too much.
Okay.
So exercise. Fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
Lean meat.
I think we're hot now. I see some smoke going on.
Watch the calories.
Okay. Any particular style of food? Like my family's from the South, so typically the things that we make are always high in fat. Bacon, things like that. From growing up, those are the type of things that we ate because that's what I was used to.
So we recommend the healthy proteins.
Right.
Fish. Try to eat fish at least once a week. Chicken, lean meats. Try to eat less pork and beef and lamb, more
Okay.
fish and chicken.
I can do that. It was definitely a struggle for me because of how I grew up eating all of the bacon fat, a lot of pork products. That's just how my family cooked. That's what I was used to eating. So me changing my diet was a little bit of a struggle. I'm going to be honest. So I can relate to people having a hard time maybe changing their diet, but what I found, like even from being here at American Heart, is that you don't always need what you're used to. You don't need as much salt as you may think.
The 4th part of the diet is eating a diet that's low in salt. You know, salt makes a lot of food taste good, but salt also raises your blood pressure. So the AHA recommends fruits and vegetables, healthy proteins, watch your calories, and a diet that's low in added salt. In fact, there's a famous diet, the diet to control hypertension, the DASH diet, that was actually created and studied right here at Hopkins by Dr. Larry Apple about 20 years ago. So part of what we have learned is through dedicated research at Hopkins.
Which is awesome. That's awesome. What I'm kind of doing is kind of moving the cooked, or the partial, it's not all the way cooked, but the partially cooked chicken, I'm kind of moving it off to the side. So I have some surface area for the remaining chicken.
So we're doing the second batch at the same time?
Yeah. I just didn't want to put them all in at the same time because, like I said, they will start to steam. And as I'm flipping these over, they're not completely done because you can still see pink even on the pieces that I put over here, which is fine because we're going to cook our veggies in here next. And I don't want my chicken to be overcooked, so it's okay if it's a little bit pink because we're going to still continue to cook. But I want to get as much cooked as possible. I didn't finish my sentence. And now that my chicken is just about done, as we're looking at it, we may have on one side a little bit of pink. Again, I don't want to overcook my chicken. So at this point where I have like a couple of pieces that may have some pink on it, I'm going to add my peppers and onions. How you got, what's that going on? Looks good. All right. I think mine's at a point where I can go ahead and add my veggies. I'm just gonna add those on top. And with this, you can put whatever color bell peppers you like. You can do the tricolor. We have the orange and the yellow today. And as you're cooking, you can break your onions apart so they kind of get all the way through your chicken. And then at this point, you want to cook your peppers and onions until they're soft enough to your liking. For fajitas, they shouldn't be super soft. They should be like pasta, al dente, a little bite to them.
Now, when would you use red onions instead of regular yellow onions here?
Typically, I use red onions for raw things because the flavor in them is not as pungent with them being raw, and they look pretty when it's raw. When you cook red onions, they kind of turn a weird color. So the red onions, I typically use them raw. Not that you can't cook them, they're perfectly fine to cook. But if we were to put the red onions in here, they wouldn't stay nice and bright and red. So that's the only reason why I don't use them when I cook. All right. And our last ingredient, as our onions are starting to get a little bit soft, the other thing you could do to get them softer faster is you could cover it if you had a cover, and it will start to steam and finish cooking your chicken. The last thing I'm going to add is 2 teaspoons of soy sauce. This is where our salt is coming in. This is the only salt for this dish, right? Just going to add that. Make sure it gets mixed in with everything. Then at this point, once your chicken is done and your veggies are as cooked as you want them to be, then you are done with your chicken fajitas.
This looks great. I usually put the onions and vegetables in first. I've never done it this way before. It looks really nice.
And I like it because it gets the flavor of everything, the spices, the chicken, and then it's lending its flavor to the chicken. So it kind of blends. That's it. Now, depending on what kind of tortillas you like, you can do corn tortillas, you can do flour tortillas. Today we have corn, and with the corn ones, if you try to eat them without heating them up in some way, shape, or form, they kind of fall apart on you. So today we're going to do a little neat trick. We're going to put them on the stove to heat them up, kind of grill them a little bit. So if you don't have a grill, this is a way that you can semi-grill your tortillas to get some nice color on them and to heat them up as well. Now the trick would be to not overcook your chicken. So this is just about done. We're gonna move this over. I'm gonna move these out of our way so we are done. Sorry. And we can just put these right on the table. Put that off to the side. And what we have already is our rice. We have our cooked rice. And to that we have some salsa. This is just prepared salsa. If you want, you can always make pico de gallo. Super simple to make. Tomatoes, onions, jalapenos, garlic, lime juice, cilantro. I don't know if I said that or not, but pretty simple. But that's pretty much what is in this. It's just blended. And we're gonna take like maybe 2 tablespoons full, add it to our rice, and kind of make this into a Spanish rice. And this is brown rice, which is definitely better for you. It includes all the parts of the rice kernel, which adds the roughage, the outer layers, the bran and the endosperm. We had to learn that in culinary school. Nobody cares about that, but the brown rice is healthier for you. That's one of those things that they teach you. It's like, thanks for sharing. Move that off to the side. And then now we're going to do our tortillas. For this, you kind of need a high flame. And you can use tongs, which I would suggest, unless you are an expert. We just kind of let it get a little color on it. Flip it around. Try not to burn your fingers. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can always use tongs. This is the way I do my peppers too, to make them roasted, fire roasted.
All right.
Awesome sauce. One down. And you notice if we do it this way, we're not adding any oil. Typically with the corn tortillas, you put them in a pan with some oil to heat them up. That's traditionally how they're done, but we're not trying to add any extra fat. So this is an ideal way to do it. And if you're wondering what we're doing, we're turning the flame up and down so that we don't burn our fingers off, which I'm kind of partial to mine. How about you? You still using? It's one of those quick. Went too far.
I like them just a little bit charred.
A little bit. It adds to the flavor. We're gonna make up 2 of these.
Now, how come your cooking space is so much cleaner than mine?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one. I don't know. Habit? I don't know. Your space is beautiful. Your chicken is beautiful. There's lovely food there. All right. So I have my 2 tortillas. We're going to grab our plates. And to assemble, basically, what we're going to do is take, we have other condiments. We have some salsa and we also have sour cream. We have the low-fat sour cream, by the way, if you would like sour cream.
My wife does not allow me to have sour cream.
You're not allowed, then we won't do sour cream today. We're not missing anything. All right, so, if you want to use tongs or a spoon, it's up to you. We're going to add a little bit of our chicken. We have these nice, lovely, trusty little taco stands or fajita stands for today. Need some onions, peppers. And then from here, I'm just going to add a couple of slices of my beautiful avocado. And if you have cilantro, add any fresh herbs would go on top of here, but cilantro is traditional. I couldn't get that out. Awesome sauce. And there we have it. And for the remainder of our dish,
You made 3 of them. That's impressive. 2 of them.
we have rice. So we have a whole little fiesta going on over here. We have our rice. And we also made black beans. And for you guys, we didn't show you, but all we did with our black beans is we opened up a can of black beans, low sodium black beans, and we added a little bit of oil to the bottom of the pan and just heated them up. And then we have our black beans. You can also add flavor to your black beans by adding some onions, garlic, black beans. And there we have, and if you wanted to add salsa on top, you can do that. But here is our little fiesta meal. Look delicious? I think so. I'm a little partial though. Maybe it's because I made it. And you said your wife doesn't allow you to have sour cream. I'm not allowed to have tomatoes. I'm allergic, so I'm gonna put some salsa on one for my lovely child. And I'll leave the other one without. I don't wanna have to come see you in the emergency room. That would not be fun. But here we have it, our chicken fajitas.
This looks great. Thank you.
Yay. Another successful meal done. Awesome. You ready to try?
Yes.
All right. So we are back with our lovely quick chicken fajita meal with our side of, I call it fiesta rice. That's what I'm going to call it. And our black beans. You ready to try?
Yes.
Okay, me too. I'm going to get the one without the tomatoes. When I like food, I dance. So.
Delicious. I like the way that when I cook the vegetables first, they're all kind of soft at the end. But here, they're actually a little bit crunchy. I like it.
Me too. I think it's delicious. High five. Good job.
Thank you. That was
Thank
great.
you so much, Doctor. Thanks for joining us.